Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. It's Larry. Hey, if I was going to ask you what was the most impactful month in American history, in recent history, what would you say? I think it has to be 9/11. And that month obviously began on the 11th, and I remember it. I was in business. It was early in business. I just started a business, and it basically shut down everything. And then I also remember the spiritual impact that had. Well, I think we're going to have something that is going to even be a bigger month than that. And I want to read some of the words that Kim Clement talked about this month. I thought that it may have started on the 1st, but I realized, boy, we don't judge 9/11. It didn't happen on the 1st. It didn't happen on the 10th. It happened on the 11th. Yet it impacted the whole world, and it's changed everything. At least what we've been told impacted the world. I'm not sure what really happened. And that's a little bit like what I'm going to talk about today, because I want to refer you to some other videos that I think really were good, and they helped me understand things. But, the main focus of this channel is financial things and what Kim Clement had to say, and what his words mean. And I think, it's pretty clear. I did a Google search for, and Google's always right? I mean, I did a Google search for the highest gold price, and it informed me it wasn't in 2024. I mean, if gold hit peak price that it's ever been, it's never been to $2,500 a month, that would be a miraculous thing. It'd be all over the news and everything, and probably you didn't even know it hit it last night, and you're going, man, I didn't know it broke 2,500. And then actually today it was the highest it's ever been, just at 7 o'clock this morning, my time, I think it was. Gold hit like $2,506 an ounce, and nobody's talking about it because they don't want you to talk about it. And I thought it was kind of interesting to Google it, see what the price would be, and I'll show you what Google said about it. And I always thought that Google was always right, but Elon kind of said kind of a funny post this week, and so I thought I'd follow up with what he said. I Googled the Trump rally because I actually had a friend, Brad, who I went to January 6th with this week, said, hey, Larry, you want to go to a Trump rally? And I thought, man, dude, he's only had one since he got shot, and you want me to go? And I thought, well, maybe I'd go. That would be kind of interesting to go. It's not my biggest goal, but I thought it was funny to get asked, and, we're thinking about it. I think it would be interesting. My brother's been to one before, and he loved it. He said it was just absolutely amazing, but they don't have them in Washington. If they had one in Washington or Oregon, I'd try to go, but I'd have to fly somewhere to go. So anyway, let's read a couple things that Kim Clement said about the months that we're in right now. It's very clear what Kim said. It's just interesting that the year that he said these prophecies, they didn't come true. And so some people criticize him, but I think he was a prophet. And I think that his words were ordained of the Lord. And I think they are going to come true. And I think this is the year that many of these things about the wealth transfer are going to come true. And listen to what he said regarding the wealth transfer on February 26, 06, he said, and God said, watch gold. This is what Kim's direct words are. And God said, watch the gold. Keep your eye on the gold, for it shall be a sign to this nation that what goes up in the economy and in that force shall bring about a spiritual gold and faith. And so he's talking about watch gold. This next one's more clear. It's 5/22/05. And I've mentioned this one many times, for the Spirit of God says, do you realize there's a marked moment in time in the summer? We have 7 weeks left of summer, if you didn't know. There's a marked moment in time in the summer where there will be a divine transference of massive amounts of money. Keep your eye on the gold. Keep your eye on that one substance. Nobody's talking about it, but yesterday was the first time gold went over $2,500 per ounce, and today it beat yesterday's record. And now it's down a little bit. Silver is lagging behind, but it always does. It's going to come racing back. Kim Clement had a ton to say. In fact, I have been working on my next book about what's coming in future months, and you would not believe, if you go to houseofdestiny.org, how many times Kim references 3 months in a row. And it's August, September, October are full of meaning, and it's full of impact. And here's what he said in 12/4/05, December 4th, 2005. August, September, October. God said in these 3 months there's going to be pandemonium. There are going to be all kinds of problems. He said the elements are reacting because one of the greatest breakthroughs that has ever taken place in the history of the church is about ready to take place. It's almost like, and I've described it before, it's almost like all of hell is poured out from one direction, beginning of August, and then all of heaven is poured out the other way, and the grace of God is begun to be poured out in ways, and there's going to be winnings and there's going to be victories for the right side like we've never seen. And I want to point some of those out that I think are coming that are also related to Kim Clement prophecies. I'm going to just read one or two more of his prophecies. This is an interesting one. This is June 17, 2005. Now watch what I do in the homes of America. For God said, you said to me, send revival. We've been praying for revival. And this is 19 years ago. But as I prophesied a few times, now I tell you again, the months of August, September, and October, a great door shall be opened and a great veil shall be removed from the United States of America. The beginning, the beginning of many deaths, good deaths, not bad. That's interesting. But then a great amount of terrorists that will be caught within the summer months. In the next 7 weeks, if this is that time, there's going to be a great amount of terrorists that are going to be caught. And then this nation shall rest at the end of those 3 months, August, September, October. And then a 4-year revival and move of my spirit will begin on this nation, says the Lord. I read it as there's numerous prophecies just layer after layer, and I'm writing about it. But it looks to me like the beginning of the Spirit of the Lord is poured out in August. But he also says that August will be known as the worst month in the history of America. And I think one could make an argument that September 11th and 9/11 was maybe the worst month in the history of America. But I think that unfortunately this month is maybe going to exceed that, except I think that heaven is excited about this, although we're going to have to go through a difficult thing, because heaven has been anticipating the outpouring of the Holy Spirit that we're going to begin to enjoy. But there's so many different people that have so many different perspectives. And so what do we do? How do you think about this? And one of the things that I'm learning as I pray, as I'm God, you're going to change everything. You're going to change the church. And I think so many of us are hungry for more. God, we don't think that what the Western church offers is all that you intended for the church. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. And so I think about, God, what do we want to do? What do we want to not do? I don't think we want to be offended by what God brings as he pours out. We're going to go through very difficult times. There's even going to be financial difficulties. I mean, there's no doubt that that's coming. It's interesting, though, the more I read it, the more I think it's going to look like it's absolutely horrible, and then God is actually going to rescue us in the middle of that. And so I feel like for probably 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to think like we're in 1929. And then I actually do think that there's going to be great recovery. I think it probably will be the dinar. I thought the dinar might go in July. I now think it's going to go in August, So I don't know what you think. I do believe that the wealth transfer is going to begin. And for many people, I think it has begun. For me, I'm doing well on precious metals. I haven't done well on crypto yet, but I'm ready. I'm excited about what I'm seeing with gold because that's a marker that is so clear. watch gold, watch that one thing. And that summer, I'm going to begin to pour out a tremendous transference of wealth. Everybody's got different opinions. You know, I put out a controversial video, and you know, I reacted to the caliber of the gun that was initially disclosed in this one website I watch on Telegram, and then later I realized that wasn't the right caliber of gun. But then I just learned, you know, and I've got an AR. Actually, I've got two 223 caliber rifles, and I've got a scope on one and open sights on the other. And I guess his gun was open sight, and that's not what I would choose if I was going to try to shoot somebody at 150 yards. I mean, I think you could totally hit a deer, and he should have been able to be successful if that's what he was trying to do. But I thought it was very interesting on a video by a lady named Mary Crowley. Now, she's on Rumble because, and maybe I should be on Rumble for what I'm saying with this, because there's a lot of conspiracy theory things I want to discuss today. But I really like the way that she did this. And I'm going to tell you, I got to meet Mary Crowley, and it was kind of interesting. When I was at the Cheon event, the Harvest International in April in Pasadena, she showed up. It's not hard to recognize her because she's a very tall, she's a very glamorous looking lady. She's not a young lady. She's closer to my age. I don't know how old she is, but she looks younger than what she is. And, you know, she's got blonde hair, and she's a very glamorous looking person. She sticks out. I knew immediately who she was because she ended up sitting about 20 feet from me. But I was taken back by how she responded, because she had really fancy coat and she had a fancy purse, and she was like, you know, 20 feet away from me. She just put it down and she went right to the front. And for 2 days, she was there every meeting. And every time there was worship, she always just put her purse down. And I thought, man, she's got, you know, a production company. She's obviously worth not a little bit of money. And yet she just leaves her purse here. She trusts everybody in here, but she goes down to the front and gets all that she can. But it was kind of interesting because in one of the breaks, we went to the closest Starbucks, and we all grabbed a coffee, and we're talking in the Starbucks between the break. And then here comes Mary Crowley, and I said something to her, and so she ended up talking to us. She's very confident, and she talked to us for about 10 or 15 minutes, and it was really fun. And it really changed who I think she is. She's actually very humble. She's very confident. I believe she's very godly. I saw her do a show just a few weeks ago where she's very prophetic. And so she just had a lady named Jen Helpner, and you might have seen her on Elijah List. And then she had the guy, he goes by Rattle Trap, and I forgot, but he always talks about the continuity of government. Mary Crowley did a really good video on the assassination and what's really going on. And what was really interesting that she did, she said, I want my two guests to give their own opinion, and I don't want to enforce it. And she goes, I don't share their opinion, but I want you to hear their opinion. And so it was really two ladies who shared the same opinion, and then he had the opinion that I did. And he helped form the opinion that I did, because I didn't think that assassination looked right. And I thought, how could this happen? And he goes on to explain, if you have the ability to listen to it, probably a way different perspective than what you might have. Derek Johnson is the guy who I'm talking about, the cowboy. So he's with Mary Crowley. And he does a fantastic job. I don't always enjoy Derek with the way that he talks, but I thought in that show, he just nailed it. He was very concise. He wasn't abrasive. He was knowledgeable. And it was just so interesting what happened. And so I don't know if you know what's happening. I've got my opinions. Some of my opinions were confirmed. Some of mine are still out there. I'm going to tell you, I've been to Venezuela twice on missions, and I was there after Chavez took over, and it was the beginning of the downturn. It was in 2004 and then 2005. I went there, and I think he took over a few years before. So their economy was going down. They were still a prosperous nation, but they've totally hit bottom. They're now one of the poorest nations in the world. Yet they have some of the richest oil resources. They're also the home, thanks to Hugo Chavez, of Dominion Software, which many states, including my own, use in their election. And Kim Clement had a prophecy, and everybody thought it related to Roger Stone because he talked about, and he's referring to Donald Trump, and he said Donald Trump, he's talking about his David, but we know that when Kim Clement talks about his David, he's talking about the prophetic future of Donald Trump as president of the United States. And he talked about how Donald Trump is going to use this stone. And I think even Elijah Streams thought that was the stone, Roger Stone, because he was very, much in the middle of this big mess. But that the word, when Jesus said to Peter, on this rock I will build my church, because the Greek word for Peter is rock or stone. And so there's a lady named Tina Peters who I'm going to also refer you to. And this is also Rumble, because when they talk about the things they have to talk to, but her trial just began, and it's related. She's a little clerk from a county in Arizona that wouldn't back down. And she actually grabbed the forensic schematic. She basically hired somebody to take a picture of the inside of her computer before the Dominion company came to do an update and afterwards. And this was after the votes had happened, but before I think everything was fully reported. It was kind of in the middle of the election, and she goes, I'm not supposed to let them do that. And I might have the timing a little bit wrong. But anyway, this lady has gone through total hell, and she's right on the edge of getting arrested and serving 20 years in jail. But she's got the receipts on what the software potential is in our election systems, and she understands what she's doing. And the government down in Arizona said that she was not a legitimate wife. And, here she is, this responsible 68-year-old woman or whatever she is. They took her husband away, made him a ward of the state. Now he died because I think he had MS. It's just horrible, the sacrifice that she's had to do, but she has nothing else to live for other than doing what is right. And she is a well-spoken person, Tina Peters. You need to watch what she's got to say. I believe she's going to be the fulfillment of what Kim Clement talked about. And I think you're going to see Donald Trump refer to what she's doing in Arizona right now, because it's going to make it known. I was just in a beautiful house, probably the most expensive house in our county where I live. And it was at a fundraiser for a couple Republicans. One I really like, Jim Walsh, who's actually become the head of the Republican Party where I live. And he's just a fantastic conservative. He's actually Catholic, but he's actually quite conservative. I love his politics, his influence on our country. And then there's another guy, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't really respect him. And he's a longtime legislator. He's a business guy. He's a state senator. He doesn't go back east. But he was talking about how elections are fair and Washington has good election law. And I said, no, it doesn't have good election law. We, the people, cannot have access to the votes. It's to the ballots. We cannot see and test. And he goes, oh, no, there's testing procedures. And I quoted the ordinances, and he wasn't aware, but he just believed the lie, because I was saying they don't get to test the fields that they want to test. They get like 50 different fields of the 50 different ballots. They at random draw one, but they should be testing the most important ones, but they aren't allowed by law to do that. They can only test one, and it has to be at random. And our voting machines are they act like they're so secure. And so I was so frustrated at this fundraiser to listen to this guy esteem the high caliber laws as we have. We were the state that initiated motor voter laws that are, all the swing states utilized us. Our former Secretary of State even flew out to Georgia to help them, and then they become corrupted. And Colorado is affected. And so I think you're going to see Tina Peters open the can of worms that Donald Trump is going to quote, and you're going to see reality come. And this is what Kim Clement was talking about. And I think this is going to begin the reaction that is going to be enormous, that Kim Clement said, and I believe this is the August, that there's going to be many terrorists that are going to be arrested during this time. And so I think the wealth transfer is right around the corner. I thought it was going to start. I think the beginnings of it has started, and I thought, man, but I guess in the same way that September of 2001 was the most impactful month in recent history of America, it was 23 years ago, that happened on the 11th of September, yet that's still the most impacted month of common people in American history. And as of noon on August 1st, at least West Coast time, nothing enormous has happened. But the financial system is just falling apart. And the government is telling us one thing, and they're not telling us other things. And Google's not telling you that gold is hitting its peak high 2 days in a row, but nobody's telling you that. You really have to go looking for it. And they're not telling you, when you search for Trump, as Elon Musk, who's just a huge voice, when you search for Trump rallies, if you want to go, you learn about Kamala and what she's doing. And I saw this morning that she's using CGI to fill in the seats because there's just not enough people that want to go to her rallies. And this centrist politician that I was at this fundraiser with, he was talking about what a threat Kamala was, and I really kind of infuriated him. I said, you are giving her way more credit than what she's due. She's one of the worst presidential candidate on the Democrat side in the last decade, and yet you're thinking that she's a valid threat right now. And it is amazing how the press can make her so great, but people like him who watch mainstream media they just believe lies, and they're programmed. And, if you watch them, you're not going to know the truth. I'm going to say one last thing. I'm going to read this one last prophecy that I think will very quickly happen. But it talked about how there's going to be a banking crash. Okay, here it is. It's December 3rd, 2005. There's going to be a banking system that will crash. And even though this happened in 2005, Kim Clement talked about two different banking crashes. And so this isn't the one that happened in 2008. And you'll know why. There's going to be a banking system that will crash, and they will say, but it is so big, how can this happen in America? And God said it shall crash, and there shall be a shaking just for a short moment in time. But there's something happening called the Damascus Road conversion among the three networks of this country. And what he means by that, the networks are going to begin to tell the truth. And we're slowly starting to see the networks begin to tell the truth. I mean, Harris fact-checked her. I think it was ABC fact-checked her the other day. But they're going to actually have a Damascus Road experience when this banking thing happens, and they're going to begin to tell us how it really was related to the Biden-Harris, policies. Because God hates socialism. He hates the secularism of our society, and he's going to restore godliness. And he's raising up people who will help in this reformation. And there's good things that are coming, but this is a spiritual apostolic reformation, and it's not primarily a financial event, but there's going to be huge financial implications. So keep your eye on gold. Keep your faith. Be encouraged. I'm really encouraged. I think that this is going to be an amazing month. The Spirit of God is beginning to be poured out. And before the end of the year, it's going to be poured out in amazing ways. And I pray that you will just focus on the kingdom of God, that it's a time to be bold in your prayers, to stand up, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. We need to be people of faith, people of God, and have confidence that He's got great things for us. So have a great week. I'll check in with you later. I'm going to show an interview I did with Wagner University leader, Dr. Rob Cavell. And so we've got some other good videos coming up next week too. Have a great August, and God is with us, and He's going to help us no matter what happens. God is with us.